Hi everybody, it's Ed Wisniowski here, and today I wanted to take some time out and show you some things that you can do in MVC that are going to separate you from other developers. It is allowing you to use Bootstrap and MVC helper classes in order to create an interesting and arresting user interface. Let's get started. Today, if you're looking for skills that are going to make you look more polished and professional, then you need to be able not only to write code that performs certain actions, but also looks good. And so today we're going to do three things. First of all, we are going to show you how to style buttons with Bootstrap 5. Next, we're going to show you how to use the MVC button helper in order to do multiple things on the same form. And then finally, we're going to use icons and text tips to add additional usability and style to the buttons and controls that you have on your pages. So here we are. We're creating a simple MVC page. And let's do a quick survey and expand everything so that it's a little bit easier to read. So here's what I did, is I've created a model called .NET 7 button examples, and I created a view model, and I called it a response model. And then I've formatted a page, and then I've added a bunch of buttons. Now these buttons are doing nothing, because they're not associated with a form. But I wanted to show everybody the different styling types that you can use for a button. And we're going to show that off. And then we're going to show off a form. So let's get started with that. As you do with anything in MVC, you start typing code. So in order to create a form, instead of typing Razor with MVC and .NET Core, you just type up a form and give it a method. So we're going to go form method, and we're going to say that it's going to do an HTTP post. That's it. Let's add a little bit more to it. We're going to put a line break in, and then we're going to add a text box. And we do that just by typing input, and we go ASP 4, and when we do that, what happens is that we can associate it with a property from the model that we created in our view model. So we're going to do that. We're going to go response message. We're going to say that the type is going to be text. We can also set it to a date time field. We can set it to a Dropbox or a pick list. Any possibility is there. And we don't need to type any Razor for it. All we need to do is type the class. So this is our form control. Now, what we want to do is we want to submit that form control to an HTTP postback, and it will do something. So let's do that. And the magic happens here in the button helper class. So you go button, and then we're going to say ASP controller. And then we're going to give it the name of the controller. So I have a controller called button demo. Now that I've done that, I say that what HTTP action. So in my button demo, I have what's called an index action. And since this is an HTTP post, it will go to the index action. I'm going to say that this button type is a submit button. You can have a submit, a generic button like it is up here, or you can have a reset button. And now we do a class. So every time you create a button with Bootstrap, you always want to use the BTN class. And then I recommend that you stick with the BTN primary for the button that's going to do the most work. And in a little bit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another button. So I'm going to put a little margin at the end there. Now that I've done that, I've got a button. Let's give it a name. Submit. All right. So now we have a button and we have a class. Let's rebuild and let's see how it looks. So here is my test bed that I use to test out my examples, and I'm going to go to Bootstrap button examples. And you can see all the different types of buttons: primary, secondary, success, danger, warning, info, a light colored button, a dark colored button, and a link. And so here is our form, and we're going to go hello world. And then we're going to hit the submit button. And it does a submit. It doesn't look like it, so why don't we step through the code? We're going to go to our controller, we're going to go to our button demo, and I am going to put a breakpoint here in the HTTP post for the index. And let's step through it and see what happens. So I'm going to add an exclamation point, and I'm going to go hello world. All right, here's our breakpoint. So the response message is hello world, and that's the name of the text box that we added. So now I just take my view model object and I set the response message to the new hello world object, and then I return it. And we're done. That's it. An easy submit that behaves cleanly. Now, what if I wanted to put a button on the screen that does something completely different, but still remain in the context of the controller? That's what we're going to do next. Okay, we're back in our code for the original page that we were doing our button demo in. Let's say I wanted to create a button that did a redirect. In other words, I don't like this page, I want to reset and start over again. So here's how we do that. We're going to add an additional button. We're still going to go to the button demo controller, but now we're going to go to a different action. So we're going to go ASP action, we're going to go to the redirect, and we're going to make it a type of a submit button. Okay, all done. Let's use Bootstrap to style the button. Okay, again, just say class BTN, that's a start, and we're going to go BTN danger. And then we'll also do this is we'll give it a, no, well, I think we'll leave it the way that it is. And then we'll close that, and then we'll give it return home. Now I've got a breakpoint set up, so let's fire it up and see what happens. So we're back at the same page, and as you can see, there's our submit button. There's our return home button. So when I click submit, we step through it. You see, hey, look, here's a new response message. Step through it. It refreshes the page because we've passed a value in it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hit return home, and here's where some cool magic happens. So now the button is saying, don't do an HTTP post to the index action, do an HTTP post to the redirect action. And so just using some simple redirect to route code, I am going to redirect the page from where I was to the home page. So let's step through that. There's the route using a dictionary class, and boom, we are here. That's kind of cool. So now you can have multiple buttons that do multiple things on the same form. And why is that? Well, the magic happens because we can define what action takes place within the button rather than the form. Let's take a look. So I told you that the magic happens at the button level. Let's take a look again. We're going to zoom in a little bit closer here. And I want you to see this. In the form, you can define the controller and the action, but I think that it's much more powerful and gives you much more flexibility if you set it in the button itself. So in the first example, we had a button and it went to the index HTTP post and it did something. And then we had a redirect button and it went to the redirect action in the same controller and it did something different. So use the action of a button to control where the form posts back rather than the form itself. All right, the final thing we're going to look at today is icons and tooltips. Icons and tooltips are cool because they make your form more visually pleasing and they allow for people with disabilities to use screen readers and use your website. So what we're going to do is we're going to include an icon, and there's a simple way to do it. What you do is you create what is called an I class. So I, and then you define the class equal to BI, and then I'm going to use BI check circle fill. And I'm going to put some padding on the end to make sure that it looks good. So I've done that, and it's going to be before the submit button. So let's take a look and see how that behaves. Okay, here we are, and you see there's that little checkbox in submit. In the return home, we're going to change it because we're going to change it from a solid button to an outline button, and we're going to put the icon not in front of the submit, but we're going to put it after the text. Let's give that a try. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put the icon at the end. So we're going to do this. I class BI X circle and then we're going to put a little bit of padding afterwards, and then we're going to close this. So that's that. Also, we're going to make it an outline button. So how do we make it an outline button? Real simple. We add outline to the class here. And let's run it. So you see is return home. You hover over it. It becomes solid. It's outline. Then it's solid. You see you've got your little X at the end. Hit return home. We're going to zip through that. And it does a redirect. You can also navigate to this page, and it's going to show you all of the icons that are used in Bootstrap 5. And it's also going to give you some search capabilities so you can find exactly what you're looking for. So if I wanted to do a checkbox, here are all the different types of checkboxes that I can use for my application. Notice that I use the circle. All right. So that is using icons. Let's try a few tool tips. So the simplest way to add a tooltip to a button is this. Take and add an additional property to a button called title. So what we're going to do is we're going to type title, and then we're going to put what we want that to say. So I'm going to say redirect to home page. All right, so now that we've done that, let's fire this up and let's see what we've got. Again, we're here on the form. If I mouse over, see a tooltip that shows up. Mouse over here, here's a different tooltip. And that shows you how you can make your buttons much more readable, much more legible, and much more interesting to the user. That's all for today, but I look forward to doing a few more tutorials, and I hope that all of you have some success coding. Take care, folks.